Do you recognize any of these thoughts? Another Zombicide campaign? Again a Terraforming Mars release? Another expansion for Barrage? A reprint of Daenerys including some extras? What is going on in the board gaming world? Have we reached the end of inspiration? Or are we just a wallet that needs and lets itself be milked dry? We need to talk about it, so let's go! Now, I've been thinking about this script for a long time. At first, I wanted to talk about the plethora of campaign games and their mixed successes. I won't go over it in too much detail, but in a nutshell, what I believe to have seen these past few years is an overflow of campaign games that bring next to nothing that sets them apart from another. It's just one more in a long list of campaign games. Some publishers even went so far that they launched a campaign and tried to make something that should resemble a story along the way of the campaign. Then I wanted to talk about the exploding costs of board games compared to the increase, or better said, decrease of replayability. Instead of that, let's talk about the shipping costs and why they are a scam, or the scam that is an estimated date of delivery. And of course, the scam of funding goals and stretch goals. Well, maybe if we have time left, we will talk about those things too. No, let's start off with a funeral parade we have gotten ourselves into without knowing it. The burial procession of well thought out campaigns. What happened to well thought out campaigns? Today, if you take a look at 99% of the campaign pages, it tells you next to nothing about the game. The campaign page sells you art and shows you epic videos of 3D rendered miniatures that are interlocked in a battle for survival while bombastic music is playing in the background. Did you see the trailer for that new campaign game? It looked awesome, right? Yes, but did it actually show you any gameplay? Any real figures? And rules? Heck, it probably didn't even tell you what the game was about. Sure, that voiceover with that deep raw voice told you something. But what was it? Something like an epic new thrilling adventure? Or we thought we've reached the end, but it was a new beginning? It's all a distraction. Should you care about real figures, rules and gameplay? I don't know if you care, but I do. And come to think of it, you should too. Why? Because it helps you to be better informed about the game. That doesn't really sound sexy, right? Okay, how about this? If a publisher like Mythic Games had done these things, many people would not be in the situation that they, like Mythic, are in. That is because Mythic Games could not make any of these claims. Look at the campaign pages of Six Siege and Helldalal Saga. There is pretty much next to no textual information about these games. There are loads and loads of renders and texts about stretch goals. There are, of course, YouTubers that have played the game and shared their thoughts. Okay, you can count those as textual information, but not about the game. Now, don't shoot me yet. Yes, these YouTubers have played the game. Maybe 2 or 3 times. But what did they receive? The whole game or just one part? Is playing one part representative of the whole game? No! The publisher will have sent them the best part of the game. Now I can still hear you cocking that gun. So one other thing I need to point out is that for Helldalal Saga there is a rulebook available that looks pretty well thought out. The rulebook for Six Siege shows a Dropbox error, so I can't touch on that right now. But having a rulebook doesn't mean much. Just look at Command and the way they tried to figure out Crowdfunding. They had an IP, a rulebook and an idea. But they had to scratch most of it because in playtesting it was garbage. So just having an idea or a set of rules isn't enough. Launch a campaign if you have a working game. It wasn't like this a couple of years back, and I don't see the industry making these changes by themselves. I believe Kickstarter, Gamefound and Backerkit should make the decline of campaign pages a priority. You can't launch an idea. You can only launch a game. You need to provide some kind of proof that your game works. Let Gamefound, Kickstarter and Backerkit have a testing pool. If these players have tested your game and they say it works, you can have the green light and launch your campaign. I'm sure there are loads of people who are ready to sign up for those playtestings. Heck, sign us up. It's for the good of the community. Okay. I am pausing the angry rant mode for now and trying to get back to the main part of the video. Is there no innovative lifeblood left in the board gaming world? Is that the reason we are seeing more and more sequels of games? Like I said in the beginning, backers are more and more becoming voluntary cows that are being milked dry with sloppy games. And it is in part our own fault. Now we can see three reasons why. The first reason is that crowdfunding platforms for board games are no longer just a way to sell an idea or a product. No, it is becoming more and more a store. No, of course, I agree, it's not that black and white. Indie studios or studios that are trying to launch their first game have a place on crowdfunding platforms. They keep the industry moving, they come up with new and fresh ideas and mechanics. For big companies like Command, Awaken Realms and Chip Theory Games, their next AAA title is always just around the corner. They should be able to produce the games with their own funds and sell them to you via the stores. But why should they? By getting their games on the crowdfunding platforms, the backers will pay for almost everything up front. By backing their games, we are taking most of their risk. Upon release, these games don't need to take the charge by storm. They have already been funded, so the money that they needed to make a profit was already in their wallet. Now everything they sell via retail is an added bonus. And to make it even worse for the backers, they paid for the movement of the products from China to almost anywhere in the world. And probably for most of the storage for some time to come. People who buy in retail only have to pay the delivery costs. They pay the MSRP, but not the sometimes $50 in shipping costs. So if you can get stretch goals that are crowdfunding exclusive, these can be fun or break your game, but you can at least see them as a genuine, real thank you. More and more, there is a shift to stretch goals no longer being exclusive to the crowdfunding backers. Yes, not all games on Kickstarter, Gamefound and Backerkit make it to retail, but most of what I just said relates to games that are available in retail after being funded on one of these platforms. Number two, a lot of us have become board game collectors as well as players. This one is pretty obvious. But before we continue, let us know in the comments how many games are there in your collection and how many of them do you play on a regular basis. If there is a large gap between the numbers, why do you keep these games? Are there games on your shelf that you have never played? If so, let us know why you bought that game in the first place and why you aren't playing it. First, a reality check. Part of the main issue is us, content creators. We tell you why a game is or isn't fun and why you might or might not want to buy it. We also create FOMO, just like companies. If we are excited, we must know more about the game than you do, right? This is hardly ever the case. We try to get as much information as possible, but we are also drawn more to certain games than others. This makes us biased to a certain degree, because we might have inadvertently stepped onto the hype train based upon our own preferences of a type of game or an art style. So think for yourself. Now let us continue. Look at any given campaign of a game on the crowdfunding platforms. If you want to back a game, we are close to $100 or $110 for base game. Then they release an expansion. Then they release another one. Then some kind of opponent upgrade and so on and so on. Now you are looking at a campaign where if you went all in, you will be probably getting 5 boxes. 1 core box, 3 expansions and some quality of game improvements or extra miniatures. If you're lucky, shipment is in one phase and you'll get it all together so you can enjoy the experience of playing the base game and maybe adding 1 or 2 expansions in the mix if you actually enjoy the game. If you have the option for 2-wave shipment or it is the only or default option, then this is a clear sign that a large part of the game is a work in progress. Large disclaimer for experience may differ, or in worst case, a revamp of part of the game during the production. But the main point for my concern will probably be that you have already played the base game and lost interest in the rest. In that case, you are a thief of your own money and experience. With the time between backing a project and it arriving at your doorstep and playing the game, you are in the best case scenario 10 to 12 months further down the road. In a more realistic scenario, it's 1.5 to 2.5 years. This means that any campaigns that have launched between these periods have an opportunity to pull you in. Your need for that type of game hasn't been fulfilled yet. You are still a potential customer. 3. Tweaks and themes are the magic words. Why do you buy a new version of Zombicide? Did you say the theme? No, it's not just that. I can follow that thought process, but there is more. They can change some of the rules that the mainstream public didn't like. Next, slap a new or different game mode on there and a different theme. And a large portion of us are hooked. Why won't they fix all the main issues with rules? Because that would leave them with less options next time. Just changing a theme and a game mode might not be enough to draw us over the line. If you bought Zombicide 2nd edition and Invader and you are considering to back Undead or Alive, either you can't make up your mind about the setting, game modes and rules, or you might want to be a little more thoughtful next time you push that backing button. As sort of an afterthought, I would like to add that a common thing with each new version is that some new rules or components that will be added generally do not benefit the ease of playing or time spent on playing the game. The more moving parts there are in a game, the more sluggish it gets. Sometimes companies nail an expansion. In those cases, you don't see it that often that more expansions are released. Never change a winning team. Now don't get me wrong, not all campaigns of a game with the same name are employed to draw money from the mindless herd. No, I think that what Go On Board is trying to do with The Witcher is good. The Witcher Old World is a finished product. Now they use the name of The Witcher and slap it on a totally different type of game. It doesn't impact The Witcher Old World. Even Terraforming Mars tried to do it somewhat differently, but for me it wasn't enough. Just one more little side note to add. In the last couple of years, the world has changed. We as a community have changed. The companies are not solely responsible for us moving from changing into the board game collectors, instead just players. I don't think a collector is a bad thing. It's just a shame that so many board games are wasting space on a shelf. Let us hope some companies and most of all the crowdfunding platforms will start to implement some changes to how campaigns are run. That would be for the better of our community. That was a long and frustrating rant, but I am done. If you have any suggestions on games to cover in the future, let us know in the comments. If you've enjoyed my rant, leave a like or subscribe. Thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next video.